What is going on, everybody? We are less than 10 days away from the NFL draft. The NFL draft is in 9 days. It is next week. It's absolutely crazy that the draft is this close. I've been recently doing, some videos about the Bengals, some players who are underrated, overrated, in some of my YouTube shorts. I recently did a Bengals 7-round mock draft. In this video, I want to be doing another Bengals 7-round mock draft, but this one is with trades. I'm not doing any Bengals mock drafts with trades, but this is the first one I'm going to be doing. So let's go ahead and get started here. Obviously, the Bengals have the 18th pick in the draft, and they have the 18th pick here, and they select Alabama offensive tackle J.C. Latham. If I had to bet money on who the Bengals take at 18, I think it'll be Latham, especially if he's there. It's very interesting because if there's a scenario where Latham's gone, maybe they go Byron Murphy. Maybe they go Amarius Mims from Georgia. I wouldn't really be too fond of that pick there. But Latham, I just kind of feel like it will be a good fit for Cincinnati. He'll eventually take the starting right tackle job about 1 year from now, taking it from Brown. But I think this is a pretty good pickup, taking Latham here with the 18th pick overall. Maybe you can find a different player here, but I think Latham would be a nice pickup here for Cincinnati. Obviously, you have the concern with, regardless of who they take at round one, if it's an offensive lineman, the fact that we can't develop offensive linemen. But honestly, I think Latham should be pretty good with Cincinnati. So they ended up taking Latham here with the 18th pick overall. And recently, Mel Kiper Jr. and Phil Yates did a mock draft on ESPN Plus, and it was Kiper and Phil Yates did the 3-round mock draft. Kiper and Yates somehow, some way had Johnny Newton, the defensive tackle from Illinois, dropping to the Bengals at 49, which is just highly, highly, highly unlikely. That's just no way that's going to happen. But I do have a trade here in the way the Bengals could maybe get Johnny Newton. So there's a trade here with the Bengals' second-round pick. They trade up with the LA Chargers. The Chargers had the 37th pick in the draft, and the Bengals, they give up their 49th pick, which is their second-round pick, and 80th pick, which is their third-round pick, and pick 237, that's a seventh-round pick. When you look at Cincinnati, they have 2 6th-round picks and 2 7th-round picks. There is a 0% chance all 4 of those picks will make the team this year. Go ahead and give them an extra, 7th to try to get one less pick you have to draft and worry about. And you're giving up a 3rd-round pick, which, you still have another 3rd-round pick. We have 2 of them because we got one from a compensatory. But I like this, trade here for Cincinnati. They move up, and like I said, they'll end up getting Johnny Newton, the defensive tackle from Illinois. But I think this would be a fantastic pickup here for Cincinnati. When you're looking at Newton, I think it's highly unlikely he'll be here even at 37. But, if you're the Bengals, you have to try to trade up and get him. I would be surprised if he falls out of the first round. This is a first-round talent. Some people think he's the best tackle in the draft. I know Mel Kiper Jr. is really, really low on him, which honestly I don't really understand. When you look at Newton, if he comes to the Bengals, I feel like the absence of Reader doesn't hurt as much if you bring Newton to this Bengals defensive line. This would probably be arguably the biggest steal in the draft, and Newton somehow falls to 37. I love this pickup here for Cincinnati. So like I said, they trade their 80th pick, which is one of their 3rd-round picks. In order to get Newton, they trade with the LA Chargers. So with the Bengals' 2nd 3rd-round pick, they take Alabama wide receiver Jermaine Burton. I like this pickup a lot. It's so weird. Normally, when you look at Alabama prospects, 9 times out of 10, they're overrated. They're talked about too much because, Alabama, ESPN, NFL Network loves to talk about Alabama prospects. But for some reason, Jermaine Burton, despite him playing at Alabama, is severely underrated. He had 39 receptions for 800 yards. He averaged 20 yards per catch last season. He had 0 drops, too. So he has really, really good hands. He has great, yards after the catch as well. I think it would fit right in well with this Cincinnati offense. And when you're looking around this, 3rd-round range, around 97 to 100 range, I think he'll probably be the best wide receiver available. You look at him, maybe a guy like Wilson from Michigan. But if Cincinnati does not elect to take a wide receiver in rounds 1 or 2, I think they should maybe take a wide receiver here with their 97th pick, or maybe pick 115, maybe a guy like Washington from Virginia. But Jermaine Burton is a really nice pickup here for Cincinnati. How I mentioned that Johnny Newton at 37 would arguably be the biggest steal in the draft. This could also be a case for the biggest steal in the draft. This player has fallen off so much the past couple months. This was a guy who was projected to be a first-round pick just 3-4 months ago, and that is Penn State cornerback Kalen King. Cincinnati gets King here in the fourth round with the 115th pick overall. Let's see here. Never heard of him, but he might be. Yeah, Burden. It's weird. I think he's pretty underrated. I would still rather have Malachi Corley at 49 if it were to me. Pearsall is another guy. Him and Burton are kind of a debate, but I really, really like Malachi Corley. But if you're not able to get a guy like Corley around 2, I think Burton would be a great option in round 3. But like I said, when you're looking at pick 115 for Cincinnati, arguably the biggest steal in the draft, that's Kalen King. 2022, he had 18 passes defended and 3 interceptions. But this past year for Penn State, he took a major, major, major drop-off in production. He had 2 passes defended and 0 interceptions. You also look at the combine. He had a pretty bad performance at the combine. He had a really bad 40-yard dash. I have Cincinnati taking him here at 115. If he's available at 97, that's something you also want to consider there, because either way, it's a major, major, major steal for Cincinnati. You might even be better off taking King at 97, because the odds of him just dropping to 115 are extremely, extremely low. But him being there at 97, you might just want to go ahead and take him there. But I love this pickup here for the Bengals. So as we go into the 5th round, the Bengals have 1 5th-round pick, and they take Utah edge rusher Jonah Ellis. He had 16 tackles to loss this past season. He led the Pac-12 in sacks this past year with 12. And when you look at Cincinnati, the Bengals' main sack production this past year was from Trey Hendrickson. They couldn't really get much sacks from anybody else. I think Ellis would be a great pickup here in round 5 for Cincinnati to get a guy who can, maybe pressure the quarterback, get some sacks here and there. But when you're looking at Cincinnati, when you're looking at rounds, 4, 5, 6, and 7, they absolutely have to start drafting good on day 3. And I've said this multiple times before. We cannot hit on day 3 picks at all since Taylor's took over in 2019. The only outlier is really Evan McPherson. But we need to start hitting on some of these day 3 picks. And I feel like, in this mock draft here, hopefully, these players sit. And realistically, I think this would be some pretty nice pickups here for Cincinnati. So far in this mock draft, we have not taken a tight end yet. But it now changes here in the 6th round, the 194th pick overall. Cincinnati takes Colorado State tight end Dallin Holker. He's very, very, very underrated. He had 64 receptions this past season for 767 yards and 6 touchdowns. Holker, the tight end from Colorado State, led all tight ends in the country in receptions and yards. He also kind of made a viral video from the combine where he had one ball in his hand, and he also caught the ball when he already had the ball in another hand. But Holker, to me, is a guy here in round 6. If he's there, you have to take him, especially when you're looking at the fact that, we've not took a tight end yet. But Holker, I feel like, would be a great pickup here for Cincinnati in round 6. As we continue here in this mock draft, aside from this trade, we would have 2 7th-round picks. But with that trade we did with the LA Chargers, we only have 1 7th-round pick. So that is the 214th pick overall. We take Marshall running back Rasheen Ali. We have 1 6th and then 1 7th. With our second 6th-round pick, we take Marshall running back Rasheen Ali. I love this pickup. He's my favorite player in the draft. I think he's one of the most underrated players in this year's draft. I've said it before, he does not get the credit he deserves. He's really started to come onto the scene during the Senior Bowl week, but he tore his bicep tendon. His freshman year at Marshall in 2021, he had 23 rushing touchdowns, led the country in rushing touchdowns as a freshman, 1,400 yards his freshman year. This past season had 1,100 rushing yards, 15 rushing touchdowns. And the thing I hate that people talk about Ali is his lack of playing with big schools. I think that's a bunch of crap. I think that's an easy excuse and a really dumb excuse by saying you don't want to draft him, because Marshall played Virginia Tech this past season. He had 174 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. He had a different game. Marshall played Georgia Southern this past year. He had 165 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. the more I watch Ali, he kind of reminds me of Saquon Barkley. He's really explosive and elusive the way he runs. He's really agile. But Rasheen Ali here in round 6, I would be so freaking happy. Marshall elects to get Rasheen Ali here at really any point in the draft. I think he'll be one of the biggest steals in this year's draft, and I would love it if Cincinnati would end up getting Ali. So I got confused here. The Bengals would normally have 2 7th-round picks, but they only have 1 with that trade with the Chargers. So with this final pick in this mock draft, they take James Madison, defensive tackle Jeremy Crowell. Crowell is extremely underrated. He has great size. He is 6'4", 275 pounds. He had 19 tackles for loss this past season for James Madison. Also go along with 10 sacks. Him and Jalen Green were very underrated with James Madison this past season. Getting some more defensive tackle help here. And realistically, Crowell had a great past season for James Madison. He might not make the team, especially like I was saying. The Bengals haven't really hit on many day 3 picks the past couple of seasons. But this is an extremely low-risk, high-reward situation. Maybe Cromwell doesn't make the team, but maybe he does. Maybe he's a contributor for Cincinnati in a year or so. But I really like this pickup here for Cincinnati. So just tuning in, doing a Bengals semi mock draft with trades. And, if you're new to the channel, if you haven't really seen my videos before, make sure, to subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. My goal is to get 5,000 by the end of the year. But, I feel like this is a very good mock draft for Cincinnati. If Cincinnati has a similar draft to this, I think we should be in shape for a pretty good season. Comment your thoughts on this mock draft. Comment who you want Cincinnati to draft. Comment who you want Cincinnati not to draft. But that about does it for this video. If you're new to my channel or you've seen my videos before, make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you all so much for watching. See you all next time on the Sports Stu Hines Show.